right, guys, welcome to Writing Tip Review Part 2. We are going to begin talking about structure. Now, when I talk about structure, I am talking about the structure of your body paragraphs. So this was actually a category on your Odyssey feedback papers. Structure includes the topic sentence, 2 supporting ideas, 2 concrete examples to support or show each supporting idea, and concluding statements. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about structure. So I want to remind everyone about topic sentences. And again, these are for the body paragraphs. So your topic sentences should be the first sentence of each body paragraph. And those topic sentences should directly address the topic on which you are writing. So those topic sentences need to emphasize your thesis statement. So remember, when you're making an argument, everything is connected. You can't forget the overall argument that you're making, which is presented in your thesis statement. And for all of you guys, you're arguing that a particular theme exists in the book. So make sure your topic sentences are emphasizing that thesis statement, and make sure those topic sentences are the first sentences or the first sentence of each body paragraph. So here are some body paragraph starters that I received from students in the past. So this one says, Harper Lee is an amazing author, but she stereotypes Southern women. Thankfully, she decides to surprise readers with beautiful contradictions to her stereotypes. Calpurnia is the most amazing contradiction to this stereotype of the Southern woman. So a couple of things here. I have underlined the topic sentence. Why it is the third sentence, I don't know, because it should be the first, because the paragraph obviously is going to argue that Calpurnia contradicts the stereotypical Southern woman. Lastly, I don't know why this person used the word amazing multiple times, and really I don't know why the person used the word amazing at all, because that's not really a word that you want to use in an essay, because it's not really a concrete word choice. So that sentence about Calpurnia needs to be first, not third. Here's another example. Mockingbirds are known for one thing. They bring happiness through their singing. They do no wrong. They are gentle and caring, but surrounded by a brutal world. Author Harper Lee uses the qualities of a mockingbird in her book To Kill a Mockingbird. In this story, one of Lee's secondary characters, Boo Radley, is a figurative mockingbird. So again, I've underlined the topic sentence. Look at how far down it appeared in this body paragraph that's from an old student's paper. And guys, look at what the argument of the paragraph is. It's that Boo Radley is a figurative mockingbird. That needs to be first. All of the other stuff about mockingbirds, that's just fluff. This paragraph is arguing that Boo Radley is a symbolic or a figurative mockingbird. Put that argument up first. Then you can prove the argument, perhaps using some of these things about mockingbirds in general. Another bad example here. In To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee portrays most of the women in Maycomb, Alabama as stereotypical husk of women, absent of any substantive personality. These ladies, including Aunt Alexandra, are what people of Maycomb epitomize as Southern women. But there are a few examples who do not fall into this category of empty stereotypes, women who actually have some depth of character. A perfect fit of this description is Miss Maudie Atkinson. So if the paragraph is arguing that Maudie is not a stereotypical shallow woman, why does it come down in the paragraph? That argument should be presented first. Now, guys, there is one exception to this rule, and that's if you are transitioning. So if you're providing a transition at the beginning of a new body paragraph, often your topic sentence will be the second sentence, but that is the only exception to the rule. So all of those examples to say, make sure you start each body paragraph with your central argument, your topic sentence. And the only exception to that rule is if you are providing a transition, which would happen for body paragraph 2 or body paragraph 3. All right, let's talk a little bit about quoting and using quotations. So some reminders, make sure you're using your single quotes with your doubles for dialogue. So guys, you only need your singles if you're quoting dialogue which is interrupted by narration. So that's when you would use your singles. If you're just quoting dialogue and all it is the dialogue and there's no narration, then you can use your doubles. But if you have dialogue interrupted by narration, you need to use your singles and your doubles. And I want each of you to shoot for quoting at least once per body paragraph. I think with a novel like To Kill a Mockingbird, there's opportunity to quote more, but I want to see each of you quote at least once. Don't forget, provide context for the quote. Introduce the quote effectively. That's part of providing context. Provide plenty of commentary following the quote. And don't quote plot. Now, what does that look like? Here's an example. When the children sneak onto the Radleys' front porch and peek into their house, Scout sees a shadow. Then I saw a shadow. It was a shadow of a man with a hat on. That information is not important enough to quote. That simply is part of the plot. So don't quote plot information. You need to paraphrase plot information or just explain what happens. And do cite it. This would be an instance where you would cite even though you're not quoting. But instead write something like this. When the children sneak onto the Radleys' front porch and peek into their house, Scout sees a man's shadow. Nice and concise, and you're reserving your quotes to support your ideas. So reserve quotes for the most important things that you need to get across. Learn the beauty of partial quoting. Some of you are actually doing this really well, but let me show you what I mean here. So look at the top example. This is not a partial quote. It says, after the trial, Jem talks to Miss Maudie about his newfound feelings of the people in town. It's like being a caterpillar in a cocoon. That's what it's like something asleep wrapped up in a warm place. I always thought Maycomb folks were the best folks in the world. At least that's what they seemed like. Jem explains to Miss Maudie that he is no longer ignorant of the cruelty and prejudices of the people around him. So this quotation has a nice introduction. It gives us context. When does Jem say this? It's after the trial when he's talking to Miss Maudie. Also good commentary following the quote. What he's explaining is that he is no longer ignorant of the cruelty and prejudices of the people around him. But do we really need to quote 3 lines? No, we don't. A much more concise, readable, and apparent why the quote is used way is to say this. After the trial, Jem talks to Miss Maudie about his newfound feelings of the people in town. He describes himself as having been in a cocoon, as having always considered the people of Maycomb the best folks in the world. Now, however, after experiencing the cruelty and prejudice of the trial, he is coming out of his sheltered life into a harsh reality. So partial quoting allows you to do a little bit of explanation along the way. So it really is a nice technique, but again, you don't want to always partially quote. You do want variety. So sometimes quote an entire sentence or a short passage, and sometimes quote partially. So mix it up. All right, let's talk a little bit about content. And the first point here is be more thoughtful in your content. So you guys are at a point where you really need to be asking questions about what you're reading. So for example, what are some things you can say about the gifts Boo put in the tree? What are some things you can say about the missionary circle meeting? About Miss Gates' comment after the trial? About Aunt Alexandra's definition of trash? So some of the things that we talked about, Boo's gifts were of value to Boo. So he is being very generous when he gives those things to Jem and Scout because he's giving things that are valuable to him. The missionary circle meeting was full of irony, full of hypocrisy. Miss Gates' comment after the trial is more evidence that Maycomb is a stuck town. And Alexandra's definition of trash comes on the heels of Atticus's definition, which really contrasts those characters' worldviews. So when you think about, what can I say about this scene? What can I say about that comment? You start becoming more thoughtful, and that leads to more thoughtful content in your papers. So ask yourself, what is the point of different things? What's the point of showing the similarities and differences between the people groups in the first purchase scene? Remember, we said that the point was to show the irony of the time period which had the separate but equal laws intact. But this first purchase scene shows that there is definitely separation, but there is not equality. What's the point of Dolphus Raymond as a character? I think one point is that he supports the idea that Maycomb is a stuck town. What's the point of Miss Dubose sending Jem the flower? What could that flower symbolize? What's the point of comparing Tom to a songbird, or of Miss Maudie baking Jem a big cake? So start asking yourself, what's the point of this? And that will help you be more thoughtful in content. Ask yourself why. Why do you think Harper Lee presents women who do not fit the stereotype? Why do you think Lee personifies Maycomb? Why do you think Dill is in the novel? So why questions are going to help you be more thoughtful in content. Have clear supporting points. Now remember, your supporting points are your supporting ideas. So make sure you're understanding the difference between an idea and an example, because your supporting points need to be clear ideas that you will then prove by example. So I pulled these from a student's paper years ago that I thought were very clear. This was a comparison contrast between the Cunninghams and the Ewells. So the two supporting points for one of the paragraphs was, the Cunninghams have self-respect. The Ewells are a disgrace to the community. And then for another paragraph, the Cunninghams value education, but the Ewells do not. The Cunninghams value hard work. The Ewell family is lazy. So you see in all of those supporting ideas, there is an idea that we now will have to prove by way of example. So make sure your supporting ideas are very clear. Make sure you present them clearly so that I can find them. If I have a hard time finding your supporting ideas, that is a problem. You have not presented them clearly. All right, I'm going to stop video 2 here, and I will pick up video 3 with working on being specific in concrete detail.